Okay, folks, the sun is just coming up and we have a beautiful, beautiful sky. We are on the PA side of the Walt Whitman Bridge today again, back in South Philadelphia to finish up this double coating. Had a chance to, let this roof cure overnight. You can see certain areas in the taping where we're light, not to worry because we have a whole nother 5 gallons to resurface or recoat this roof. And in addition to that, we're going to be working on this roof. Now, the second roof, as I explained to you guys, right, there's a lot of prep work. This roof is really not in as good a shape. For one, you can see where it's just simply not level. The additional products that have been put on, coatings and so forth, were just not evenly distributed. In fact, what it looks like is like someone took the buckets at this end and just started pouring them out and then rolled as much as they could and then poured more buckets right here and let it roll down. So it's not the proper way to distribute it, right? And yesterday we had a lot of prep time because there's 300 linear feet of joint areas. Same on this roof. The issue is that we wouldn't take the time to tape out all of the joints, right? The joints are where you're going to see these cracks forming first. So if it were just a matter of having cracks on the joints and all of this was in good shape, then we would retape the joints, precisely why we did that here, right? But since we have cracks that are forming all throughout the product, not just in the joined areas, really the only goal today is going to be to go to areas like this where we have significant infiltration, right? And try and seal those up because we know water's getting behind those areas. We don't know what's happening once it does. Could just be pooling behind that product. Like I said, essentially, there is a ton. Look how thick this stuff is on here. Okay, that's not the way it's supposed to be. When it is on that thick, people's thinking is that the thicker the better. That's not the case. The product does not perform the way it should, nor does it cure correctly once it exceeds a certain thickness. So it should never be on this thick. Now the challenge becomes in certain areas, right, where we know this stuff is loose, we want to make sure that we take as much of that loose stuff out, right? But on a roof like this, you really have to be careful because it's not an opportunity where we could get every piece of whatever's going to come up loose on this roof. Essentially, we'd be scraping and resurfacing the whole roof. So the goal today is with expert hands, paying attention to detail as closely as possible. I'm going to try to get this roof as patched up as possible and then get a proper thin coat over top of this stuff. Now, again, it's coating on top of coating. How well will it adhere? How well will it perform versus how it's designed to perform, on a properly prepped surface is anybody's guess. But I've promised the homeowner that I'll guarantee the work for at least the next 5 or 6 years. I know that the roof will last at least that long after being mended and coated today. And one more final thing just to point out. Okay, so in an area like this, we had initially planned just to come and scrape all of those joints. Okay, but as we started to scrape, you can see, right, that there is thin metal. So somebody essentially did the same thing that we did on the chimney, right? And they took thin metal to line that joint. And here's the problem with that. If it's done correctly, that should go under, right? So when you get to the bottom, the base of the 45-degree angle, it should run 6 inches under, right? If that's the case, even if it's half of that, and we start to pull that stuff out, we could have a major problem, right? We could start pulling up the whole roof. And since there's so much muck there, I already know there was a problem. That's why it's patched up. So we have to be very careful because we can't take a project where we invoice someone $1,300 to do repairs and a coating and then do something that's beyond what was in the scope of work. And as a result of whatever it is that we did, which was not explained when we went over what would be done, now we've created essentially a problem that's more than $1,000 or requiring the roof just to have to be entirely replaced. That being said, we have no choice. We're just going to simply remuck that as neatly as it can be done when there's, piles of it on top already. And then the other thing is, so this cannot be seen from the ground. I mean, look how thick this coating is on there. This cannot be seen from the ground. But again, it's being bitten by the sun. While they were up here coating, they really should have coated the whole thing. If it was could be seen from the ground, then you get high temperature, metallic, flat, roofers paint and paint it. But since it can't be seen from the ground, it should have had the reflective coating on it. It's essentially just a hot box on the roof. And, it's going to deteriorate or deteriorate faster than anything up here if it's not protected. So we'll wait and see how much coating we have left and whether or not that's possible. Like I said, you have a finishing on here, which appears to be some kind of cement or mortar. That's not roof tar, and it's just busting off. So wanted to show you the work, show you the roof before we started. We have our work cut out for us with a lot of these cracks and such. Product just completely failing in many, many places. So we will do the absolute very best that can be done. And we'll check back with you once we have everything mended before we get any coating on.